Sup guys, it's Alex here and welcome to another edition of the Bracketology update. This one is for January 18th. Technically it's for January 17th yesterday, but I was busy with work. Finally getting around to it. As you can see, it's 7:32 p.m. This video is probably going to go out within the next hour or so after I finish recording it. But what a crazy weekend of college basketball we had. I mean, really a week. It's been a week since I made the last video. I didn't do one over the weekend just because I didn't have time to. But man, there has been some crazy results lately. I mean, first off, we got to talk about my Wildcats after getting absolutely having a terrible loss against South Carolina. We go to Tennessee, the number 5 team in the nation, and beat them, making our way up to the first team out here. As you can see, we're now in the field in Joe Lunardi's update today, like the last team in because we beat Georgia. But it was a huge win for the program. Also had teams such as Arizona fall. I think they got absolutely destroyed by Oregon. UConn, I mean, they're playing right now. I don't know what the score is, but they've lost 2 or 3 in a row. Xavier's moving on up. They're up to a 2 line in the Bracketology update. There are a couple of other teams last night, Kansas State, Kansas, one of, if not the game of the year so far. Keontae Johnson having that crazy alley-oop to take the lead and give the Wildcats the win. Had the court storming and everything. I was rooting for Kansas State. I wanted to see them have really they're having one of the best seasons in program history right now. They're like 16-2, probably going to be ranked in the top 10, should be ranked in the top 10 whenever the new rankings come out next week. But it'll be interesting to see what happens. Arkansas kind of falling out too. They're number 25 now. They only had 14 more votes than, can't remember who was the first team in the other receiving votes category, but Arkansas, my pick for the past couple of bracketologies. I mean, it's been purely based off of the talent whenever they're healthy, but I mean, I got to make some adjustments just on how things are going. Also, Duke, now out of the top 25 again. It had been so long since they had been out of the top 25 before the 2021 season happened, but now they're outside of the top 25. So a lot of Blue Bloods, Kentucky, Duke, and North Carolina, all out of the AP top 25. But enough talk about that. Let's go ahead and take a look at the bracket watch, 2.5 minutes in the video. Top overall seed is Kansas. Then we had the first team out, Kentucky, and then the last team in, New Mexico. So taking a look at the bubble here, last 4 byes are Indiana, Wisconsin, Memphis, and Maryland. A lot of Big Ten, or 3 out of the 4 teams right there are Big Ten teams. Last 4 in are Boise State, Oklahoma State, Penn State, and New Mexico. First 4 out are Kentucky, West Virginia, Northwestern, and Texas A&M. And then the next 4 out are USC, Utah State, Florida, and Virginia Tech. So, as you can see on the bubble here, there are a ton of huge names here. Usually this is kind of filled with a lot of second best team in the conference, mid-majors, those type of programs. But as you can see, just a ton of Power 5 schools that are just kind of hanging in there on the bubble, waiting for conference play to see how that stuff kind of shakes out. But taking a look at the bracket here, taking a look at some movement, we have North Carolina down to an 8, Missouri down to a 9. They had a huge rise over the last couple of weeks, but then have suffered, I think, 2 consecutive losses. Rutgers up to a 5. They had a huge win. I think they're ranked now too. I'm really liking that program. Oklahoma and New Mexico new to the field there. Providence down to a 6, they lost to Creighton. Then we have Nevada new to the field as the automatic qualifier. Arizona down to a 3 after the Oregon loss. Iowa up to a 7, Charleston down to a 10, and then Gonzaga surviving a huge road game against BYU. They're up to number 7 in the AP poll, but it took a late 3 by, I think, Julian Strother to put them ahead and secure the victory against BYU. Looking at the South Regional in Louisville, probably I'll be going to the Sweet 16 and Elite 8 games there. We still have Purdue as a number 1 seed there. They survived against Michigan State. We have Creighton up to an 8, Pittsburgh up to a 9, Oral Roberts up to a 12, Kansas State a 4 right now, Duke down to a 6, Penn State new to the field as an 11 seed, Michigan State down to a 7, Florida Atlantic, I got to give them credit. They are ranked number 25, I believe, the first time they've ever been ranked in their program's history. Props go out to Florida Atlantic right there. Then we look at the East Regional. We have San Diego State down to an 8, Ohio State down to a 9, VCU, the new automatic qualifier, as a 13 seed for, I can't remember, I'm blanking off, I think the A10 I want to say is the one they're in. I may be wrong on that. Auburn up to a 6, Maryland down to an 11, Connecticut down to a 3, NC State up to a 7. They had a big home win against Miami, Florida. Indiana down to a 10, and Texas up to a 2. And then over there in the West, we have Clemson up to an 8, Arizona State up to a 9, Illinois up to a 5, Liberty new to the field as a 12, TCU up to a 4. They had a big win against Kansas State as well. I think they had like a double-digit win against Kansas State over the weekend. Then we have Arkansas down to a 6, as I mentioned at the top there. I mean, I've had them win the championship the past couple of bracketologies, but they've dropped from a 3 to a 6 in between videos. Then we have St. Mary's up to a 7 and Wisconsin down to a 10. So you guys know every time that there's a new bracketology, I create the bracket on Excel here. You can go to vertex42.com to download the template. Then you just fill in the teams kind of like I do every time that there's a new bracketology. But yeah, 5 minutes and 40 seconds into the video, let's go ahead and start making some predictions for the NCAA tournament based off of what I think would happen if the tournament was to play out as it's seated right now. So up first, we're going to have Kansas obviously beating the winner of Southern and Fairleigh Dickinson. North Carolina, I think, will beat Missouri. Then we're going to go with Rutgers beating the winner of Oklahoma and New Mexico, which I'll probably go with Oklahoma there. Marquette will beat Marshall. Then Providence will beat Nevada. Oops, if I can pick Providence there. Then we're going to have Arizona beat Seattle. Then we're going to have Charleston pulling off the 10-7 upset over Iowa. And then Gonzaga beating SIU Edwardsville. And for a spot in the Sweet 16, Kansas and North Carolina, a rematch of last year's national championship game where North Carolina blew, what was it, a 15-point halftime lead. I think that Kansas is going to win the rematch here. This would have been fantastic to see in the preseason, too, because North Carolina was the #1 team in the nation, but we all know that story. Then I'm going to go with, oh man, I love this matchup right here. 4-seed Marquette, 5-seed Rutgers. I am going to go with the I think it's the Golden Eagles versus the Scarlet Knights. I'm going to go with Shaka Smart squad there. But then I'm going to go with an upset pick here. I'm going to go with the Friars of Providence upsetting Arizona there, 6-3. And then Gonzaga is going to handle business against Charleston. For a spot in the Elite Eight, we are going to go with Kansas here, moving on past Marquette, as much as I'd love to see Marquette win that game. Then we're going to go with Gonzaga, moving on past Providence. But then for a spot in the Final Four, I am going to go with Kansas. They've been playing fantastic. I mean, Jalen Wilson had, 36 points last night or something crazy? I think that they will handle Gonzaga there and move on to the Final Four as a 1 seed. Actually, the #1 overall seed. So moving over here to the top right regional, we are going to have Purdue move on past, I guess I put Southern twice. I don't remember who that is, but it doesn't matter anyway. Then we're going to go with Pittsburgh beating Creighton. I'm going to go with an upset pick here. Max Abness, one of my favorite players in the NCAA, pulling off the upset over Isaiah Wong in Miami in a classic 12-5. Then we're going to go with Kansas State here, moving on past Princeton. Duke, I do think does have the talent to beat Boise State or Penn State, which I think would be Penn State. Then we're going to go with Xavier here over Youngstown State. Michigan State will beat Florida Atlantic, and then Tennessee will beat Siena. So then for a spot in the Sweet 16, Battle of the P schools here, we are going to go with Purdue moving on past Pittsburgh, then Kansas State moving on past Oral Roberts, Xavier handling business against Duke, and then I'm going to go with an upset pick here and go with Michigan State upsetting Tennessee there. I'm sure some people are going to say it's because I'm a Kentucky fan, but Tennessee, they beat Mississippi State last night, but it's going to be interesting to see what this team is made of if the shots don't fall. So up next, we're going to have Kansas State moving on to the Elite Eight, rhyming accidentally. I think that they'll be able to upset Purdue there, though. That game would be absolutely fantastic to watch. Probable player of the year in Zach Edey facing off against Kansas State and Keontae Johnson. And then I'm going to go with Xavier here, moving on past Michigan State, which sets up Xavier and Kansas State here for a spot in the Final Four. Maybe it's probably recency bias, but I really like how this team has played this season. I'm going to go with Kansas State here, moving on to the Final Four as a 4 seed. So then moving on down to the bottom right regional, Alabama will move on past UNC Asheville. Then we're going to go with Ohio State here, moving on past San Diego State. Baylor will handle business against Kent State, and then we're going to go with Virginia over VCU. Maryland will pull off the classic 11-6 upset over Auburn. UConn will beat the Fighting Toothpaste of Colgate. Then we're going to go with NC State handling business against Trace Jackson Davis in Indiana, and then Texas will beat Samford. Then for a spot in the Sweet 16, Alabama, Ohio State. If this matchup was a football matchup, fans would be going crazy. But here in basketball, you got to go with Nate Oates' squad and Alabama. Then we're going to go with Tony Bennett's squad in Virginia beating Baylor. Then we're going to go with an upset pick here and have 11-seed Maryland advancing on to the Elite, or no, not the Elite Eight, the Sweet 16, upsetting the UConn Huskies, who have been kind of faltering as of late. Don't know what the score is of that game as of this recording, but it's going to be interesting to see if UConn loses that game too, to see how far they fall. So we're going to have Texas moving on past NC State. Then for a spot in the Elite Eight, we're going to go with Alabama moving on past Virginia there. And I'm going to go with another upset pick here. I'm going to go with Maryland as an 11 seed, making a Syracuse-type run, as it seems like Syracuse always does, and moving on to the Elite Eight there. Texas without Chris Beard, they're still handling business pretty well, but it's kind of scary to think about what they might do in the NCAA tournament. And why not have a crazy Cinderella run with an 11 seed Maryland advancing to the Elite Eight, but then they will fall to Alabama. Like, that one's not even a question there. So we're going to have Alabama moving on to the Final Four there. So in the last regional over here, the bottom left one, Houston will beat UMBC. Then we're going to go with Clemson here, moving on past Arizona State. The Fighting Illini of Illinois advancing on past Liberty, and then TCU beating Southern Illinois. Then we're going to have the Razorbacks of Arkansas moving on past Memphis. Iowa State beating UC Riverside. Then this matchup, I just don't see either one of these two teams. I probably would have, in any other 7 or 10 matchup, if they were paired up with somebody else, I'd pick their opponent. But I will go with the 10 seed Wisconsin Badgers there moving on. And then UCLA will be Eastern Washington. Then for a spot in the Sweet 16, we are going to go with Houston falling to Clemson. Here we have Clemson pulling off an 8-1 upset. Usually we have at least one seed fall before the Sweet 16. I'm going to go with Houston being that one this time around. Then we're going to go with Illinois moving on past TCU in a 5-4. Then we're going to go with Iowa State here, moving on past Arkansas, with UCLA as well advancing on past Wisconsin. Then for a spot in the Elite Eight, we are going to go with 5 seed Illinois, the Fighting Illini, moving on there in a battle of the Orange Schools. And then we're going to go with Iowa State here advancing on 2. They just beat Texas last night. That's a team that you can watch out for too in Iowa State, though UCLA, I feel like I may not be giving them enough credit there. I think that they can make a run as well, but I really like Iowa State right now. So much so that I'm going to put them in the Final Four here. So we're going to have, as of this moment, 3 Big 12 teams here in the Final Four. Usually I'm an SEC guy whenever I'm putting teams in the Final Four, but hey, Big 12 is playing like the best conference in the league, or in the nation right now. So for a spot in the national championship game, to summarize, we have 2 1 seeds, a 3 seed, and a 4 seed here in the Final Four. So look, we got some magic happening. We don't have pure chalk going on, but I will have Kansas here moving on to the national championship game past Iowa State, where they will face Alabama, the Crimson Tide there. I think this might be the year for Nate Oates' squad, which sets up Kansas versus Alabama for the national championship. And I am going to go with the Crimson Tide of Alabama, going through the entire Big 12 here, kind of like how, what is it in the NFL right now, how the 49ers might have to go through the entire NFC East there with the Giants, Eagles, and Cowboys. But I have Alabama winning it all here, as you guys can see, moving on to the national championship game and taking home the hardware. So thank you guys for watching. Really hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to leave a like and subscribe if you did. Leave a comment on your thoughts on my predictions. Let me know your own thoughts and predictions as well. Always happy to kind of read through the comments and see what people are thinking. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you all later.